Welcome to SafetyNet, your regular guide to the latest news, issues and developments in track safety. Coming up in this edition: new moves to reduce the number of possession irregularities, 2 versions of Minimail are on track for type approval, and Railtrack published their latest safety performance report. But first, an inquiry has found that the immediate cause of an accident in which a contractor was critically injured was the failure of the pike-out to set up a safe system of work. The man was hit by a Liverpool Street to Norwich train at Goodmays near Romford in Essex on May the 28th.
The 49-year-old track worker, employed to build a cess walkway, suffered serious head injuries after being struck a glancing blow by the train on the down electric line. At the time of the accident, the main group, protected by a sight lookout, had all stood clear of the approaching train. The injured man, working alone with noisy levelling equipment 60 metres further up the line, had no touch lookout.
He's been let down by not having proper supervision and guidance in establishing safe systems of work which are there to protect him.
He wasn't protected, was he?
He wasn't protected at all, no.
At the point of impact, the walkway had been wrongly constructed just 3 feet from the nearest rail, and the injured man had none of the certificates needed to carry out the work.
He didn't have a competence certificate to operate the vibrating plate, and he didn't have a personal track safety certificate.
Whilst the contractor's method statement was considered to be thorough, it had failed to effectively communicate its contents to the track workers. The inquiry recommends that Railtrack establishes a more rigorous monitoring system. The track worker is out of danger but still recovering from the accident. Limited clearance signs have since been installed on sections of the walkway.
Official figures have revealed that around 400 possession irregularities occurred on the UK network last year. They include trains moving without authority, detonators on the wrong line, and earthing straps applied to live rails. It's a trend which is commanding the attention of many industry professionals. In this special report, we highlight a number of new safety initiatives designed to reduce the disturbing level of possession irregularities.
It's 11:30 and Pike-Op Dave Barnett treads the signal box steps to take his overnight T3 on a section of line near Immingham.
At Alterby North Junction, ahead of number 13 points.
It's a job which requires meticulous attention to detail and is set for a shake-up.
Is that okay with you?
Soon Dave and all other Pike-Ops will have to be certified in one of 3 categories, defined by no trains in the possession, 1 train or more than 1 train. Dave welcomes anything which will make the job safer, but feels that classroom learning can never replace experience on the track. And he has his own definition of a successful night's work.
Everyone going home safely and the track given back safely to traffic and whatever. And going home after a night shift and knowing you're going to be able to sleep.
The Pike-Op Competency Programme is just one part of an industry-wide drive to sort out possessions.
Above all, I want clear understanding of all of the players in possession management, of how to go about it safely, taking the possession, within the possession and giving up the possession.
So Chris Lear has set up the Possession Management Steering Group, whose project manager William Hill has firm ideas about what's required.
Improvements in equipment, improvements in the rules, which is being driven by the Safety and Standards Directorate, and improvements in communications. Communications between Pike-Ops and signallers, between Pike-Ops and engineering supervisors, and between Pike-Ops and block roadmen. Somehow we need to wake the whole industry up that something needs to happen about the large number of possession irregularities we're presently having.
And he's shown the way with his own company by launching the Take Possession newsletter for all AMEC Rail's Pike-Ops.
I may have preempted your thoughts, actually.
What we actually include are incidents from local and national logs, any other items of interest that are submitted from the people that read it. We have a little group that gets together made up of Pike-Ops and engineering supervisors, and that allows us to get feedback from the ground, which is really important.
Meanwhile, a TSSG working group is to trial two new categories of T2, the T2P and the T2T.
There are many ways to take a T2. This one, for example, is a T2D, and the working group thinks there's room for innovation. So they're going to trial the T2P for situations where the T-cod is not suitable. Detonators will be placed at a signal without the need for a hand signaller to remain. And working group leader Phil Graham wants the rulebook, currently under review, to simplify the T categories.
I'd like to see T3 in the future just for the really big jobs, primarily those jobs with on-track plant and trains, and T2 for everything else, T2 in one form or another.
They're also trying the T2T, which will authorise the PICOW to take possession of the token. These methods are similar to those that already exist for T3 possessions.
A 35-year-old contractor who suffered head injuries after a freak accident during overnight track work has lost the sight of an eye. The incident happened at Ironhurst, near Dumfries in southern Scotland on June the 2nd.
The man, part of a Jarvis work group, was using a heel bar to lever a rail onto a base plate, whilst his colleagues pulled it into place. However, the rail caught the bar and catapulted it into his face. Investigators say that no risk assessment had been undertaken for this routine job.
There should have been two heel bars to carry out a butterfly type lift, and the rail should have been eased gently onto the base plate. The men should then have removed the heel bars, and then the rail pulled forward until it came up against the next base plate.
It's been recommended that risk assessments are undertaken into similar routine tasks and relevant control measures implemented. As a result of the impact, the contractor fell back onto a stock of sleepers and will be unable to work trackside again.
The need for clear and effective work briefings for those working on or near the line has been highlighted recently. They're the subject of our regular safety file feature.
If you're working on the track, it's the responsibility of the PICOW to identify him or herself, set up a safe system of work and brief the group members accordingly before any work starts. The PICOW must explain whether you're working in a green or red zone, whether the line is electrified and what the line speeds and direction of trains are, plus positions of safety. Your work group must be told the nature of the work being undertaken, the access points, the route to be taken to the work site and any hazards on the way. In addition, it must be explained how to contact the signaller or emergency services if necessary. In a green zone, you need to know which lines remain open to traffic, what the limits of the zone are, who the site warden is if it's unfenced, and what method of warning will be used. If it's a red zone, the lookouts must be identified, along with positions of safety and the method of warning. All those working on the site must produce their PTS certificate. If you're a lookout, you'll need to be told specifically about the nature of work and equipment to be used, the permissible speed of trains, the sighting distance of approaching trains, and the number and experience of those working on the track. Furthermore, you'll need details of your position of safety, any limited clearances, all possible train movements, weather conditions and visibility, underfoot conditions, and the noise created by the work or any background noise. At the end of the briefing, everyone in the group has to sign a form to acknowledge they've received the briefing, as does anyone who joins the work group later on.
Two versions of the Minimel automatic track warning system are one step away from use on the network following a productive meeting between Railtrack, the Railway Inspectorate and Swiss manufacturer Schweitzer.
HMRI approval is the last hurdle for the system, which offers safety and manpower benefits in red zones. Discussions with Schweitzer have resulted in a formal application being submitted for parallel approval of both Minimel 90 and the more advanced Minimel 95. A number of large infrastructure contractors have already expressed an interest in buying the system. Infra Safety Services will supply units to the wider industry. Work to achieve type approval for 3 further systems is continuing. ARW52 received Railtrack type approval following a meeting of Great Western Zone's Safety Review Group. A case will now be submitted for HMRI approval. IWS, trialled in Scotland, is likely to gain approval during the autumn following completion of the safety case. Validation of Series 2 of the track system will get underway shortly, with trials set for the North West and one other zone in October. Type approval is expected early in the new year.
Time now for other track safety stories in brief. Railtrack will be consulting widely in its bid to update and simplify the format of the rulebook. A particular goal will be to streamline the way changes are incorporated.
There have been a number of people who've said that the personalised rulebook is no longer appropriate for the restructured privatised industry. The rulebook itself is an extremely, if you look at the whole book, voluminous document, and sometimes difficult to find the right piece you wish to understand.
The hunt is now on for a project manager, and no changes are envisaged before the end of next year. In response to a request from the TSSG, a number of designs to update the enamel armband worn by pikehouse and others have been suggested, but more ideas are still needed. The aim is to increase comfort, ease of use and visibility.
We're looking for a badge similar in size to the existing armlet, but it's easily interchangeable, so that people undertaking various roles such as pike op, ES and pike L, so on, can change these badges and put them in their pockets or so on, so they don't lose and they're readily available. Now, we are hoping perhaps to have the rulebook amended to outline the minimum requirements that just suggests the colour of the badges and the minimum size. Again, the ideas and the ways in which they can be fit to the person is really up to the people out there, so we want their ideas.
Railtrack say they have met their goal of making their zonal hazard directories available in electronic form by the end of July. All zones can now provide their directories either on paper or electronically. In Scotland it's offered in CD format, and for the rest of the country on floppy disk. Fencing manufacturer Vortok International is applying for a rulebook change to take full advantage of its track guard fencing system. With its rigid spars and posts attached to the base of the rail, clearance can be adjusted between 4 foot and 6 foot 6. Now Vortok believes that the 40 mph limit at 4 foot should be increased due to the fencing's enhanced safety features. Railtrack Southern Zone has authorised the use of the fully insulated fence in all situations except bullhead rail, as long as it's erected by trained personnel. Other zones are expected to follow Southern's lead. Vortok are hoping to have their enhanced fencing available for tests and demonstrations at the beginning of September. The TSSG believes the new barriers offer significant safety advantages and hope they will be widely adopted by the industry. And finally, Railtrack's year-end safety performance report shows that 3 deaths prevented Railway Group objectives for workforce safety being achieved in the period 1997-98. But that still leaves the 3-year moving average at less than 2 fatalities per year. The report does reveal a substantial improvement in safety since the late 80s, reflecting the success of many safety initiatives. The risk per worker has also fallen, from over 3 fatalities per 10,000 workers in the 1980s to an average of 0.9 fatalities per 10,000 workers for the last 5 years. The figures show that trackside work is generally safer than coal mining and forestry, both in terms of fatalities and major injuries, and comparable with construction work. The report concludes that despite the 3 deaths, there is little evidence that trackside risks are actually worse than in previous years, but says there is no room for complacency, and targeted action to achieve improvement should continue. The Safety and Standards Directorate, which published the report, is responsible for producing the railway industry's master safety case, and accepting and monitoring the performance of train operating companies and contractors. Amongst the 70-strong directorate, which was reorganised back in March, is a team of field auditors, whose role is to ensure that companies comply with existing standards and assess the effectiveness of those standards in delivering safety objectives. The Directorate's remit also covers the gathering of safety intelligence, conducting risk analysis and establishing control measures. In response to recent changes in the industry structure, it's also looking at the development of standards which are easier to understand and apply. Well, the Director of Safety and Standards joins me from Railtrack headquarters. Rod Muttram, are you encouraged by the trends revealed in the Safety Performance Report?
In general terms, the long-term trends are still going in the right direction. Clearly, I'm highly disappointed in the area of track worker safety that after a completely fatality-free year in the calendar year 1997, at the end of the financial period of 1997-98, in the early months of 98, we had 3 trackside fatalities, and clearly that's a great disappointment after a very good period of performance.
The report suggests that track workers are exposed to a similar level of risk as construction workers. Is that a satisfactory position?
Clearly what we're looking for in all areas of safety is continuous improvement. And I think getting to the point where we are on a par with construction workers is a significant achievement from where we were, but clearly it still isn't good enough. And we need to move the safety of track workers forward by a number of initiatives. And as I said, I think the possession management initiative and looking at the whole way in which we manage possessions is one clear area where I think we have the opportunity for another step change in safety performance.
Rod Muttram, thank you. Well, that's all from this edition. December's Safety Net includes a report on transmission-based signalling and how personal radio receivers could bring safety benefits for those working on the track.
The radio will give the opportunity for each person working on the ground to be in contact with the control centre just as if they were a train, and in the sense that you can give the train an authority to move, we hope to be able to give workers on the track information about passing trains.
And you can read more on that story and all the latest track safety news in the next issue of Safety Lines, which will be with you in November. But from the Safety Net team, goodbye.